What's up, YouTube? This me again, Cord. This is part three of the Milk series, biblical summary. Uh, Today's topic is who are the heathens, basically. Heathens just mean that they they not part of the promises. They not Israelites. They not part of the Abrahamic blessing. And they not part of the blessing of Israel. But they not Israelites. To be part of the blessing of Israel, you have to be an Israelite by your father. You know, and this thing is only for the Israelites. The Bible is for the Israelites, pretty much. And right now we trying to gather the elect, basically. Those the chosen ones that will make it out of the riffraff that's to come, and they overcome this world, and they'll be basically the first people that inherit, the first Israelites that inherit the kingdom of God, basically. So the heathens is basically non-Israelites. Now, in the prior episode or prior episode, I went over Esau basically because he our major enemy right now, and he a heathen too. But these is basically the others that came out of Adam, basically. So let's get right into the lesson. Okay. We're gonna go start with the first Ham. So go to Genesis chapter 9, verse 18 to learn about Ham. Ham was one of the three sons of Noah. Because after you already know about Noah's flood, that the Lord flooded the whole earth, and he only kept Noah and his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives, and the animals on the ark alive to preserve seed. The rest of the earth was destroyed by the flood. Man. That flood was the first death. The lake of fire, which is gonna be in America, which that's an advanced teaching that'll be later on. But the lake of fire, which is gonna be in America, is the second death. The flood of Noah was the first death. Okay, so go to Genesis 9 and 18, and I'm gonna go to it too. Got my phone. Just give me a moment, please. Okay, Genesis chapter 9, verse 18, and always use the King James Version. King James Version. And it reads, "And the sons of Noah that went forth out of the ark after the flood were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan." Right. Because Canaan, that's basically Israel. Um, that's the land they took from. That's the land that they inherited as they homeland. They took it from Canaan. Canaan was the original inhabitants of what we call Israel right now, or Jerusalem, that area, Israel, basically, the homeland, our homeland, basically. Um, Canaan is, like I said, one of the sons of Ham, and Canaan and Ham is the so-called Africans, basically. So the so-called Africans, they they call Hamites. They Ham, basically. A lot of black people believe the that we originated from Africa, but really we didn't originate from Africa. What happened was in 70 AD, the Roman general Titus, let me bring that up, he invaded Jerusalem, basically. He invaded, you can bring it up as a historical fact. In 70 AD, Titus besieged Jerusalem, and basically what happened was when the Romans, under the leadership of Titus, which was son of Emperor Vespasian, what I'm saying? Basically, he invaded, the Romans invaded in 70 AD Jerusalem, and they caused the people to flee Jerusalem for their lives. The Israelites had to flee Jerusalem to save their lives from the Romans, basically, because the Romans besieged it um, under Titus, the son of Roman Emperor Vespasian. They had to run into Africa, and see, the original Israelites was black, man. They was black people. They wasn't white people, or no, they was black. You know what I'm saying? It was the tribes, basically Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, basically, that was left, that was there at that time. You know what I'm saying? And because the other tribes had already, um, they had already came to the Americas, basically. You know what I'm saying? They had already came to the Americas, and um, so basically, at that time, it was only the so-called Negro tribes in Jerusalem, um, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, which is black men. So what happened was when the Romans besieged in 70 AD, they fled into the Africa to hide amongst the African tribes, the black tribes. From the Romans. That's what they did. They and then from there, eventually being in Africa, and settling amongst those tribes. Eventually, what happened was the slave trade came about, and so-called Africans, Hamites, sold. Um, they sold uh, black Israelites to the white man Esau, because this go all the way back to the curses, and this was all God's will, by the way. This was God's will. All of this came upon Israel because it was God's will, man. Basically, for their wickedness, man. You know, so when they fled into Africa and they dwelt among the Africans for a season or whatever, then eventually the slave trade came about, and then so-called Africans sold so-called Israelites to black Israelites to the white man during the Atlantic slave trade. That's what they did. That's the truth right there. You know what I'm saying? It's a good book if you want to read it. It's called Babylon uh, to Timbuktu. Let me look it up. I want to give you the precise name. Babylon to Timbuktu. And they explain this whole thing. Babylon to Timbuktu. Okay, see, it's on Amazon. Here's a picture of it. That's what it looked like. It's called From Babylon to Timbuktu. And it basically show you the history of the ancient black races, including the black Hebrews. Right. It should tell you how they got to Africa, man. You know, so that's what happened basically. The Romans came in 70 A.D. To flee, so they wouldn't be to flee. They fled for their lives into Africa. Our ancestors did, and and then eventually the Atlantic slave trade um, came about, and so-called Africans sold so-called black Israelites to Esau, man, which then Esau brought them to the Caribbean and the Americas. South America and the Caribbeans and North America to to be slaves, basically. That's what happened. That's the truth. So so-called Africans is not your brother, man. So-called Ethiopians, uh, so-called Egyptians. You got a lot of our people into this Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Black power stuff and connected with it. The Egyptian stuff, Egyptology and all that, whatever you call it, man. You know what I'm saying? Where they basically worship, that Hotep, African Hotep stuff. You know what I'm saying? Um, that's not for you, man. That's Hamite stuff. You're not a Hamite. You're an Israelite. The Hamites had you in slavery, and you're gonna put them in slavery. You know what I'm saying? They going into slavery under the Israelites, the so-called African, because they had you in hardcore slavery as the Egyptians. Because the Egyptians is one of the sons of Ham coming out of Mizraim, and usually they was known for their height, basically. And like the modern day Egyptians would be like the Sudanese people. Let me bring up a picture of them. They was known for their height, being tall and skinny, basically. And that's the Sudanese. Google Sudanese. They known for their height and being black as hell. Like these people. These people. Those is Hamites. Those is not of our people, man. Of course, Israel has been scattered among all the whole earth. So you got Israelites all over the earth because you got a thing called confusion of faces, which I get into that in a later lesson. But basically, but for the most part, these people, these Hamites, they heathens, man. They not part of our tribe, man. They're not part of our people. And you notice the so-called African hate the so-called African American. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a spiritual thing. Because they're not our people, man. They look down upon you because they used to have you as slaves, man. You know what I'm saying? And they traded you with the white man as slaves. You know what I'm saying? They traded you, so they look down upon you. They look, you know, you had this movie called Sugar Hill. I don't know if you ever seen this with Wesley Snipes, but anyway, his brother Roland, I guess, if that's the correct name. They was doing a deal or whatever with this African, and then this dude called Roland a kutta, and then they was like, "What the hell is a kutta?" And he was like African cotton picker, and then he decked them or whatever. He fucked them up, but they looked down upon you because you was a slave, the so-called African. You know, and let me see. Let me pull up some more pictures of the so-called African, and so you can see this is not your people, man. And notice the swag of the African. How many dancers have come out of Africa? You know what I'm saying? Um, how many great athletes have came out of Africa? Great boxers, great musicians, great dancers. That's another difference between the so-called African and the so-called African American is that they don't got that same swag and style that the the so-called African American got, man. Or even in the Caribbean blacks, the so-called West Indian, they all got a style and coolness to them, which the African lack. He don't get that. Look up this this rapper called Bangs on YouTube, and you'll see what I'm talking about. He try to rap, and he just ain't got it. He ain't got that. He just sound like a African booty scratcher. He don't got the same style and swag that a African American rapper got because it's not in they that's not in their spirit, man. You know what I'm saying? It's a difference between the so-called black man in America and the so-called African. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But here go another example of Hamites that's not a part of your people because we don't have that custom. Look at all that lip plates and all that. That's heathenistic customs. This is not part of your customs. You know what I'm saying? The so-called Israelites is the so-called African American and the so-called Caribbean blacks and the so-called Native American and the so-called Latino. And some of you dudes are so caught up in this black stuff that you think all the tribes is gonna look like John Shaft, and that's not true, man. You know what I'm saying? We've been scattered through all the earth, and we done mixed. And Jake like to have sex, and he been having sex with the other nations, and producing different looks of Israelites, man. You know, and that's gonna continue on, man. Um, so yeah, these lip plates and all that stuff, and making cuttings on yourself, that's against God's law, man. These people is heathens, man. They don't follow the customs because they wasn't given those customs. They don't follow the customs and the culture of the scriptures or the Bible because they not part of it, man. It was never given to them. You know what I'm saying? So basically, in a nutshell, the so-called African is Ham, man, and he not your brother, man, and he going into slavery, man. You know, you know, pretty much Israelites in Africa is in like I said, we scattered over, but a lot of the western African, what basically where they got slaves from, like Nigeria, you know, you know what I'm saying, Ghana, you know what I'm saying. A lot of those places was where you could still find, a lot of Israelites that didn't get captured or whatever. Basically, Western Africa, but for the most part, Africa is Ham, man, and they not part of our tribe, man. They are different people. You know what I'm saying? That's we would never do this to ourselves. What nigga would do that to himself like that? That's just not even in our spirit to do it, to mutilate ourselves like that. They do that because they got a different spirit about them. This thing is spiritual. You can't just be carnally minded. You have to be spiritually minded too. You know, they smear dung on their head. They drink blood. All things that you're not supposed to do in the scriptures. You know, anyway, man, they drink blood and shit, man. You got a tribe called the Maasai. They believe in drinking blood, man. And the scriptures tell you in Leviticus not to drink blood or eat fat. You know, animal fat. So these people do that because they not part of. That's part of their tradition because they not Israelites, man. You know. So now, of course, the Israelites can get caught up in the cultures of other people. You know, what I'm saying, because of God's curses always booting them out of their land, Israel, and making them live amongst other tribes of people. So sometimes Israelites will take on the characteristics and culture of those people. But for the most part, those Africans, they heathens, man. You know, we'll never think about mutilating ourselves like that and drinking blood and all that type of stuff. But that's natural within them to want to do that. You know, and smearing dung on themselves. You see this shit? Look at him, he drinking blood, man. This is repulsive. We would never do no shit like that. That's not in our spirit. I find blood to be disgusting. But he getting down, man. You know, so that's Ham basically, man. You know, a heathen. Okay, I got another First Chronicles 1 and 8. Go to First Chronicles 1 and 8. That was another scripture that I put down. First Chronicles 1 and 8. Okay. So this is Ham had 4 sons. Excuse me. Oh my. First Chronicles 1 and 8. And it reads, the sons of Ham, Cush in Mizraim and Put in Canaan, basically. Okay, so so-called Ethiopians, so-called Egyptians, so-called Sudanese, so-called Somalians. You know what I'm saying? So-called South Africans. You know what I'm saying? The mixed tribes of Africa. You know what I'm saying? Central Africa. Basically, that Africa is ham land, man. You know what I'm saying? So that's it for ham. I'm gonna go to the next heathen. Japhet. Okay, Japhet. Japhet. Okay. Oh, okay, hold on. Japhet. Yeah. Basically, Japhet. There's not a lot of scriptures on Japhet, but Japhet is basically those so-called Polynesians, basically, like Samoans, um, the so-called Polynesian warriors of the Pacific Islands, basically. Uh, Papa, New Guinea. Um, the island people, basically, of the Pacific Ocean. So-called Hawaiians, so-called Samoans, New Zealand's, Tahiti, New Guinea. You know what I'm saying? And the word Japhet means beautiful. Let me verify that. Means beautiful or beauty. Right. Genesis. Oh, wait, my bad. No, it don't. I don't know why. I think I heard that somewhere, but I can't. Okay. Yes. 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 It is. Japhet means fair. Fair. Somehow, however, Easton's Bible. This is from Easton's Bible Dictionary. Easton's Easton's Bible Dictionary. It says, widespreading God shall enlarge Japhet. Some, however, derive the name from Yafa, to be beautiful. Right. And they are a beautiful, well put together people. You know, um, they very physically solid. You know, look, so-called Polynesian people, the Hawaiian people, Samoan people. Those is Yaphet. Papua New Guinea. Those people. Yeah, these people right here. Papua New Guinea. The islanders, basically. Basically. You know what I'm saying? The Polynesian people. These was the original Romans. These was the original Greeks. You know, before Esau came in and invaded, these peoples in those lands. These was the Etruscans. If you look at Roman history, you had a people called the so-called Etruscans. They was Japhetic people. You know what I'm saying? And um, media. You know about who took down the Babylonians, the Persian Media Empire. Media was Japhet. Japhet was Media, along with Persians, which would be the Iran people today, the people of Iran. They was the ancient Persians basically, and they teamed up with Media to take down Babylonia, but the Babylonian Empire, which was Ham, man. You know what I'm saying? Kush, Ham. Was Hamites. So yeah, they heathens, man. They as you can see, they got that heavy tribalism and stuff, and they not a part of our people. But you can see they very physically solid and built well. You know what I'm saying? That's the name. Japheth, beauty. When you look it up, Polynesian people or whatever, Papua New Guinea, you can see they're very physically solid, man. They known as great warriors, basically too. So-called Samoans and stuff. They know, you know, having good chins in the boxing ring and having, good knockout power and stuff. You know, being hard to fight and stuff. So, yeah, that's Japhet basically. The island people, Polynesian people of the Pacific Islands, original Greeks, original Romans, the Etruscans. You know, basically though, the original media. Okay. Um, anything else to say about Japhet? No, that's it right now. So that's Ham and Japhet. Now we finna go over the heathen that come out of Shem, cause Shem, Israel also come out of Shem, but then you had others that came out of Shem too, but they not a part of us. You know what I'm saying? There's a couple of groups I want to go over. Um, okay, let's start with Ishmael. Go to Genesis chapter 16 and 11. Genesis chapter 16 and 11. And this King James Version, of course. And let's say, And the angel, and then read this Genesis 16, chapter 16, verse 11. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord have heard thy affliction. This is the angel of the Lord was talking to Hagar, Sarah's maid, and he will be a wild man, and Ishmael is a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. You know what I'm saying? So basically, Ishmael is the so-called Arab, um, the so-called Saudi Arabia, the men of Saudi Arabia. That's who Ishmael is, the so-called Arab, basically. You know, those and wild man, the ones that you know, uh, silent, damn, Bin Laden, basically those type of dudes. That's who Ishmael is. Bin Laden, you know what I'm saying? The so-called Taliban, you know what I'm saying? You see how wild they is. They be beheading people and stuff. You know what I'm saying? They barbaric basically, man. They very wild and barbaric. They still stone people in this day and age. Like if one of their daughters is basically like a whore or something, or an adulteress or something, or what I'm saying? Basically, unrighteous or whatever, like a whore or whatever, basically, or an adulteress or whatever, they'll stone her, man. You know what I'm saying? They still stone people. They behead people. In the name of Allah and all that. Those people, so-called Muslims and stuff. That's Ishmael, man. And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. Right here, wild man, and his hand will be against every man. Right. Look how the so-called how it is in the so-called Middle East. It ain't no peace in the Middle East, basically. And these so-called Arabs, they proudful, and they go against everybody, man. You know what I'm saying? They'll go against everybody, man. They not at peace with Esau. Who is they really at peace with? You know what I'm saying? You know, they really ain't at peace with nobody. The so-called Arab. You know what I'm saying? The Middle East, there's no peace in the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? These people that strap bombs to themselves and blow themselves up in the name of Allah, they very wild and barbaric, man. You know what I'm saying? They always having conflict in their land, basically. You know what I'm saying? Um, so that's who Ishmael is. Uh, Ishmael. Let's go to for some more information on Ishmael. Let's go to Genesis chapter 17, verse 20. You know what I'm saying? Okay, next chapter. And God said, Sarah, thy wife. Okay, because basically, uh, let's go up. Uh, Hold on a minute. Okay, yeah. Okay, just forget about that. Genesis 17 and 20. Yeah, 17 and 20. And it reads, "And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he begat, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year." Right. Ishmael was not the son of the promise. Isaac was. You know what I'm saying? Even though Ishmael was Isaac's son, I mean, Abraham's son, excuse me. Even though Ishmael was Abraham's son, he was not the son of the promise. Isaac was. You know what I'm saying? That was the Lord's choice, man. Just like Jacob and Esau both came out of Isaac, but Jacob was the chosen one and Esau was the rejected one. That's just how it is. Uh, but I want to get a picture of Ishmael and the 12 kings, basically 12 princes. Basically talking about like Saudi Arabia, those rich dudes with the oil and stuff. So I'm gonna put in Google Saudi Arabia princes. Yeah, these dudes. That's Ishmael right there. You know, very. They got the Lord lived up to His promise. They got a lot of wealth. Those families. You know, because of oil and stuff. You know, so that's Ishmael right there, so-called Arab or whatever. So-called Saudi prince. You know, so basically that's Ishmael. Basically, you know. Okay, and continue with the so-called Arab, the so-called Indian Elam. Elam is the so-called people of India, the men and women of India, basically. Elam. I got a scripture for Elam. Go to Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 35. Jeremiah 49, verse 35. All right, King James Version. Hold on. Put in King James. Always use the King James Version. Okay. Uh, Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 35, and it reads, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Behold, I will break the bow of Elam, the chief of their might." And so-called Indians is known for their skill in archery. You know what I'm saying? To this day, they win a lot of championships in archery in India, man. You know what I'm saying? The so-called Arab is known for his skill in archery. Remember, even the Persians was known for they archers. Remember on that movie, The 300, he said our archers will black out the sun. Remember, you know what I'm saying? So they known for those people known for their archery, they skill in archery basically. You know what I'm saying? If you look it up, you'll see. I'm telling you the truth. Archery in India. So yeah, the so-called Indians. So that practice Hindu and all that shit, all that you know what I'm saying, idol worship and all that stuff that we not supposed to uh, get into and all that is so-called Elon. Man, Elon is the so-called Indian of India. You know, so that's it for it's limited in the scriptures about Elon. But now I want to get into the so-called Persians, okay? Because they important, because they play a role in prophecy. You know, what you need to understand that the history repeats itself. America of today is so-called Babylon in the scripture. You know, everything that happened to Babylon, the ancient Babylon, is gonna happen to America, which is modern day Babylon, which is in Revelation known as Mystery Babylon, the great whore that sitteth on many waters. Lady Liberty. I get into that stuff later. But basically, who took down the Babylonians? The Persians and Media. So I just told you, Media, ancient Media, was the so-called Polynesians or Japhet. But the ones that inherit that hold on a minute. Hello?
Hi, good morning. I'm calling from the Governor's State Testing Center. How are you?
How are you? Fine.
I'm doing good, thank you. Am I speaking to Cord Harrison?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was informed by my coworker that you called earlier, and our supervisor for the testing center, she's not here. I just wanted to get more information so we could relay that to her, and then she'll get back to you at her earliest convenience. But I see here that he mentioned you were inquiring about testing in December specifically.
Yeah, I didn't see no listings. I was wondering if it was over with or you just hadn't put it on your site yet. Put it on the site,
Okay.
the
Okay, may
GED
I
site.
ask what test specifically were you wanting to take?
Oh, okay. Well, my plan was to take at that time, by December, would be the science and language arts. I was going to take two
And
tests.
okay, and may I ask, are these like for the university, like placement exams, or is
No,
it a
just the
club?
GED.
I'm sorry,
No, for the GED.
GED exam?
Yeah.
Okay, and you did go through on Pearson, and you looked at our site.
Yeah,
You
I
didn't
went
see
on
in the
GED. Yeah, on GED.com. I see y'all got test days for everything except for December. Y'all got it all the way up to November, but wasn't on for December. And I was wondering
okay,
if it was
I see
over
your
by then
question.
or something.
Okay, I see. So you're wanting to test specifically in December, and you were wanting to know when our schedule will be up
Yeah,
for that time.
yeah. If y'all doing testing during that time or not.
Yes, more than likely we will be. I think it's just more so the schedule reflecting that, and I'll send a message to our supervisor just so she's aware of that, and for us to inform you by when that schedule will be up, and you'll be able to schedule. So she is currently at a conference. She will be back Thursday, but there's a possibility that she could get back to us sooner in the meantime. So as soon as we hear back from her, either she'll call you herself or we'll give you a call back to inform you of when that December schedule should be up, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty. Well, thank you again for the added information and you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Oh well. I guess y'all heard my business or whatever, but it's okay. I thought I paused it, but obviously not. But it's okay, man. It's cool, man. It is what it is, man. Um, so yeah, well, we were talking about the so-called Persians. Um, yeah, basically they the people of Iran, basically, man. And they gonna team up with Russia in the end times to destroy America, basically. You know what I'm saying? Just like back then, the Persians teamed up with so-called media, which was the Japhetic people. Well, the modern day Japhetic, the modern day media is talking about the so-called Russian because they uh, have the land basically that the old time media had. Basically, they control the same land that the old uh, Japhetic media had. Basically, they got their land now, so now they count as media of the modern day. So, media in Persia is going to take down Babylon, which is America. Media in Persia is Iran and Russia. Persia is Iran, and modern day media is Russia. You know, so you see in the news Iran making threats against America with, and they got missiles, and Russia, you know, have been in conflict with America. Well, those two is gonna join together and they gonna shoot missiles upon Babylon, which is America. Because Babylon, America is gonna be totally destroyed by fire. You know what I'm saying? And then it's gonna just be a desert basically, and nobody gonna live over here. You know what I'm saying? And the whole point is to get hope that you part of the elect so that you don't die by fire, basically die by missiles, by nuclear destruction. Because the Lord returning with His angels to, what I'm saying, to collect the elect and to save them from the coming destruction. You know what I'm saying? So basically, that's what it's all about, man. So, um, yeah, go to Jeremiah 51 and 28. Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 28. This scripture is talking about America, against America. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes. All right, the Medes, the modern day Medes is Russia, and the captains thereof, and all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his dominion. And the land shall tremble and sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord shall be performed against Babylon, which is America, modern day Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant. What I just told you. America is going to be a desert where nobody going to inhabit it. That's the Lord's plan for America. God does not love America. God hates America. God refers to this place as the great whore, Babylon, mystery Babylon, the great whore. You don't have no respect for this place, man. You consider this place as a whore, basically, an unclean thing, man, an abominable thing, basically. um, Isaiah, go to Isaiah chapter 13, verse 17. Is okay. Behold, Isaiah 13, chapter 13, verse 17. It says, behold, I will stir up the Medes, which is the Russians, against them, meaning Babylon, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Right, so America is not going to be able to pay off Russia, basically. Russia hates America and wants to destroy America and become the dominant superpower of the earth. You know, that's Russia's ambition is to take out America, man. Okay. Let's keep reading. Verse 18. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. When it's talking about the bow, it's talking about that missile. That missile shoots out that silo like a bow and arrow, basically. You know what I'm saying? It's talking about they missiles. Intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. Russia shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. Right them. Those missiles, they don't care who you is. They'll destroy anything. Verse 19. This Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19. And Babylon, meaning America, the glory of the kingdoms. America is known as the richest and greatest nation on the earth right now. The beauty of the Chaldees, which will be so-called Esau right now, man. The America is Esau's ultimate glory, so-called America. Shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, what happened with Sodom and Gomorrah? God rained down fire on Sodom and Gomorrah. And what is Sodom and Gomorrah like? It's nothing but desert. You know what I'm saying? Nothing but sand. Nothing but salt and sand. Dryness, nothing. No green. No green, no trees, nothing. Just desert. That's what Sodom and Gomorrah is like now. And America gonna be the same way. Okay. All right, let's end at 22. Continue. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. It shall never be inhabited. Like I said, America is going to be a total desert that shall never be inhabited by humans, by people, by civilization. Neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there. Neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. A total barren desert land. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and the houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. That's evil spirits. So basically, it's just a desert, man. You know what I'm saying? A desert hell, basically. You know what I'm saying? A barren place, basically. A place that's not fit for human inhabitation. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so that's it for the Persians. Remember, the Persians would be it's the so-called Iranians, and the so-called Russians is the modern day Medes, and they're gonna team up and go against America and destroy America with missiles. Okay. Um, the last of Shem, basically, the last major group of Shem, the so-called Japanese and Chinese, the so-called Asian people, and those is the so-called Chinks. That's Ammon and Moab, man. Ammon is the so-called Japanese, and Moab is the so-called North Korean, and the so-called Chinese, basically. Is Moab, basically. So those so-called Asian people, they not part of Israel. They're heathen, and they the so-called and they Ammon and Moab. That's their biblical name. But the world call them the so-called Asian people, so-called Chinese, Japanese. Let's go to um, Genesis 19 and verse 35. So after what happened with them is Lot and his two daughters, they escaped Babylon. They not Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah, excuse me. They escaped. God had mercy on them, and they escaped the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and basically they thought it was such a devastating destruction that they believed, the daughters believed that basically it wasn't no more people left. No, they thought they were the only ones on Earth still. That's how devastating that destruction was. You know, so they thought we got to repopulate the Earth basically. So what they did was they did committed incest. Lot's daughters committed incest with him, and the result of that incest was uh, Ammon and Moab, the so-called Chinese people, the so-called Japanese people. You know what I'm saying? And okay, so let's read it. Genesis 19 and 35. And they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Matter of fact, let me go back. Hold on. Let me go back so you can say. Let's just read what the daughter said. Genesis, so you know I'm telling the truth. Genesis, I'm just gonna read the whole thing out. Genesis chapter 19, verse 31. And the firstborn said unto the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Right, because of the destruction that they just witnessed, you know what I'm saying, and heard of Sodom and Gomorrah. They thought that all humanity had been wiped out, basically, except for them and their father. Okay? And there's no man on the earth. That's what they thought. Come, let us make our father. This is the daughter speaking. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. He was in a drunken state. They got their father drunk and then had sex with him. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. So then the elder one did it first, then the younger one did it with her father the second time, the second night. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she was rose. He was drunk. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. Incest. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. That's the so-called Chinese, the so-called North Koreans. You know what I'm saying? And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Beni Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day, so-called Japanese. You know what I'm saying? And basically, they was conceived through incest, and you know, you don't post to. That's an abomination, basically. You don't post to lay with your nearest to kin. You know, um, and a result of that, and that's why they outlaw incest too, because it causes genetic disorders like Down syndrome, and that's why the so-called Asian people, they had that slanty eye look to them because of how they was conceived through incest. Basically they incest babies. You know what I'm saying? Down syndrome. Let me give you a picture of Down syndrome, or you can look it up for yourself. Google Down syndrome, and you'll see they got that look to their eyes, just like the so-called Chinese people. These is kids with Down syndrome. That's a genetic that's come from incest. A genetic disorder that come from incest. Now look at so-called. You seen that? Now look at so-called Chinese people or Asian people. And you see, they got that syndrome look to their eyes. You see, see. Well, so yeah, man. Basically, that's the heathens, basically, man. Outside of Esau, that's the other heathens, basically. So that concludes the lesson, and I hope you learned something. And that's it. And I'll see you later.